Hi everybody, I hope you're all well. It's just gone over really dull. I've just filmed my announcement video and it wasn't too bad for that, and now all of a sudden it's gone over so dull I've had to turn the lights on. So so I wasn't planning to be away for a couple of weeks. I was only going to be 1 week. Last weekend I was meant to finish Sherlock Holmes and get that review to you, but something happened and I ended up having to go to hospital for over the course of 3 days because I came down with a very nasty infection. I'm all right now. I finished my course of antibiotics. I've had plenty of rest. I am back to my normal self. But yeah, it was just like, oh God, and it just kind of came out the blue as well. So that everyone at the hospital and my doctor's surgery were absolutely amazing, got me what I needed, and I am back to normal. But yeah, just so you're aware, I have got a bit of a nasty bruise on my arm from cannula. Believe me, this is a lot better than it was. But yeah, if you see it and you're like, what the heck is up with her arm? It's a nasty bruise I got from cannula. So yeah, I found out my veins are like baby veins, where as soon as you put a needle in, they just collapse. So I had multiple cannula attempts up my arms, but that one was the hardest, and it really hurt. But anyway, but yeah, I'm doing much better, back to my normal self. In a couple of months' time, I'll need to go back to hospital for a day just to have procedure and test done, just to like an MOT, just to make sure that I'm all good. Which will probably, because of the date that this all happened, and that you have to wait 2 months, most likely will fall around my birthday. Happy birthday to me. But I'd rather a case of that, you know, it gets done and I'm all good, than continue on being ill, and possibly, you know, it get significantly worse. So yeah, it wasn't pretty, and I'd rather wish that it never happened, but it happens. You know, people get sick. It was just annoying that it just came out of the blue, and it was so painful and not nice. But anyway, since, you know, going through all of that, I have been slowly but surely making my way through the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, and now I am here to review it. Now, this is the Bookishly exclusive cover that I got from the Bookishly Advent Calendar of 2022, and just so you're aware, it comes from the Wordsworth Classic collection of the Casebook and His Last Bow. So I will be talking about both of those, not just the Casebook as what is indicated here on the exclusive cover. And just so you're aware, there is a Spotify link. If you scan it, then it gives you tracks to listen to for the Bookishly Sherlock Holmes playlist. I completely forgot that was something I could do until after I finished reading this book. So I didn't utilize that because I forgot that it existed. But given that I was going through loads of stuff and had to take time to heal and everything, you can understand why I wasn't focused on Spotify or anything, even though obviously Taylor Swift dropped her fabulous new album and I had to wait a couple of days to actually listen to it because I was just too ill. I couldn't listen to it. So yeah. Anyway, back to Sherlock Holmes. So what's my history with Sherlock Holmes? So I have known the stories of Sherlock Holmes since I was a child because of my dad. My dad loves Sherlock Holmes, and so my sister and I were kind of like raised with him. Not a thing of he's always a prominent thing in my mind of childhood stories and such. Not like the Lord of the Rings was, but it was an entity that was always there. Kind of like, certain like music that you have in your memory of hearing a lot as a child because your parents listened to, but it wasn't necessarily something that you focused on. That was like me. Now, my sister focused on Sherlock Holmes. I didn't. I was off reading other stuff and getting distracted and all that jazz. But a notable thing that I do remember listening to is the BBC radio dramas. Now, I will include the Audible link to those and the link, should I say, because you can buy either the complete collection or you can buy the individual books, as in because they did them by book of Sherlock Holmes. That, yes, just so you know, because I've got the details of the full collection right here on my phone. It is 48 hours and 33 minutes long, and at the moment, because it's in their 52% off sale, it's $7.99. 48 hours of drama, brilliantly done drama, I should say, starring Clive Merrison and Michael Williams as Holmes and Watson. So yeah, they're absolutely fabulous dramas. But getting back to where I was, so yeah, there were, and of course we had the TV series, which I will also talk about later, which I remember watching, but again, it was just like sporadically. I did read A Study in Scarlet and The Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax. Now, when I said that I was reading this book next in my last book review, I mentioned Lady Fairfax something, and I realised that that what I did was that I took the F of Francis and the fax from Carfax and I shoved them together when I said what I thought the title was. I was completely wrong. And how do I know for sure? Because it's part of this collection. But that was when I was a teenager. I'm 37. So it's been so long that I couldn't actually remember Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing style. So in a way, even though I knew these stories well and had various, links to various different versions of Sherlock Holmes, I at the same time was going into this as like a blank canvas. So yeah, it was very, very weird knowing that and going into that. So let's talk about the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes. Now, this is the last collection of Sherlock Holmes books. So Arthur Conan Doyle wrote his initial series of stories, and they were very, very popular, and he kind of grew to hate Sherlock, and so he threw him off a waterfall at Rackenbach Falls, and the public were appalled by this and demanded that he bring Sherlock back. And he, after quite some while, because he was so sick of people bugging him, he was like, oh, for God's sake, fine, I'll do it. So he brought Sherlock back, and there are multiple volumes of the various stories, and this is the last volume, the Casebook and His Last Bow. And so at this point of this collection, Holmes and Watson have been working together for quite some time. So Arthur Conan Doyle has been writing for quite some time, so he really knows what he's doing. Now, in a way, that's great because I could trust all good, but at the same time, it was a little bit frustrating. And when I say a little bit frustrating, it was me, it was my own thing here, where because I didn't know what had been presented to the audience about things about Sherlock's past, and even Watson's past as well, but also just general descriptions of people, general knowledge of certain areas that we may have already explored with Sherlock. Because I didn't have any of that, it just kind of felt like, oh right, okay, I'm supposed to know this person. And this is why I was frustrated with myself, because I didn't have that information. But then why should I be frustrated with myself? Because obviously I'm reading the tail end of a collection of a story. It was so stupid. It was so stupid, but it's the way that my brain works. So sometimes I felt a little unsure, a little unstable, just simply because I'm like, oh, am I supposed to recognise you? Do I understand why why Sherlock's got hostility towards you. Should I have met you before? I don't know. So yeah, there was that kind of uneasiness. But in a way, though, it really did trigger a lot of memories and thinking back over the radio plays and such, which I haven't listened to in a long time. So I think actually after I've filmed this, I'm going to start re-listening to them. So I got that entire collection, which I will share in the in the description below. My sister had the CDs. Dad ripped a copy of the CDs, and I ripped a copy of Dad's CDs. So yeah, that's how I got hold of my copy. This was long before Audible was a thing. So so I have got copies of all of them, and yeah, I think I'm gonna listen through them again. I think that would be really good. But what I want to talk about also is that Arthur's writing is just so brilliant. I did not realise until I read this collection that each of the stories, and I'm not going to talk about in depth about the various stories, what they're about, because there's so many of them. It would take, look, there are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There are 20 stories in this 400 and some page book. Let me just confirm how many pages it is. Come on. 417 pages. There are 20 stories in here. So that's a lot of characters, a lot of stories, a lot of things. So I'm not going to talk individual stories here. But you can imagine there's only probably about 30 odd pages per story. And so his choice of words is absolutely on point. It reminded me a lot of Agatha Christie and J.K. Rowling, and to bring it to other genius poetry work that got published whilst I was reading this, Taylor Swift with the Torture Poets Department. The choice of words is exquisite. He can describe so much with just literally a handful of words. It's masterful. It truly, truly is. I automatically felt that I was in the world of Victorian England and I was going through these cases. Yes, it can feel a bit rushed at times because Sherlock in general, I personally feel he's constantly moving, whether it's physically because he's running about and he's trying to find things and he's exploring, or just stood there and it's his mind that is going, that's rushing around and trying to figure out what's going on. I find him very, very interesting to read, and him and Watson as well. I love the fact that there are times where they get along, there are times where they don't get along. All of it is written from Watson's point of view, because Watson, what he does is that he writes up all the cases to get them published, so that it brings people to obviously their place of work and gives them employment. And Sherlock at first, he's really appalled by it. He's just like, oh, for God's sake, I am not a character. But then he kind of oh, what are you writing about there? Oh, he really gets caught up in it as well. It's really, really great. I found, so some stories it was a little rushed, but these ones, because this is nearing the end of the Sherlock stories, yes, there's always been darkness through the Sherlock stories, but there is a sense of balance as well. And I'm not saying that for every dark story you have to have a light story. What I mean is that by the balance is that you have something that is a bit different. So say, for example, you have one where it's a string of murders, like a serial killer, and then the next one is the next one will be something that's a bit odd, oh gosh, the name of it has fallen out of my head, but it's one about a woman who was employed to to come to a house, and she has to have her hair cut off to her shoulders, and her hair is red. That's the thing that makes her stand out and such. And she has to wear a blue dress and sit in a window for a certain period of hours every day. That's her whole job. And she goes to Sherlock Holmes and she's like, this is frigging weird, and there's weird things going on at this house. Please help me. So you get something that's very different. And then right after that, you get something that's just friggin' bizarre, like the speckled band. I find the speckled band so fascinating. Again, sorry, titles are falling out of my head. It's something like called like the Matchstick Men, or something like that, to do with or the chalk men or something, to do with a series of like stick men that get drawn, and this woman, everywhere she sees these and they're written in books, they're written like chalk on rocks, and she's terrified. She doesn't know what they mean, and it's them trying to find out. And so you get this really dark, really odd, really friggin' bizarre, and it kind of goes around like that in a circle. But when you get to the case book, because we're nearing the end, we get some really bleak stuff in this, and we get one even like the Sussex Vampire. That's a dark story. That really is a dark story. And we also get like the Dying Detective, which is so interesting because we finally get more of an insight into Sherlock, in that he's actually outwardly speaking about his past and how about relationships. And so there's some really, really interesting stuff that comes out in the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes. So I find that this one is more, it's much darker than earlier stories. But also I find that this is really Sherlock opening up for the first time. This is really about Sherlock, this collection. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to reveal what happens in the end, because I don't want to spoil anything whatsoever. But I think it's a fitting ending to the Sherlock stories. Like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle paid his dues with telling the stories that he told, and you can tell that he knows his stuff, kind of like with Agatha Christie, how she would quiz people, how she would use her knowledge of medicines, how she would experiment and such to be able to go, is this actually physically possible to happen, yes or no? And then she would write her works. And I feel like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was kind of the same. And even though he loved Sherlock, came to hate Sherlock and utterly despise Sherlock, in a way, he really does love him. I kind of feel like that thing of, and again, I'm going to bring it back to Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has got a song on her new album called Thank You, Amy, which is about Kim Kardashian, where she is basically retelling the things that happened between the two of them, relating to a school kind of bully mentality, and says, I can't forget what you did, and I also can't forget how you actually helped me to heal, because I have gone on to do this, all this stuff, and this wouldn't have been possible without you. So in a way, even though I was yelling, fuck you, Amy, all the time, Amy, I actually have to thank you. So thank you, Amy. And it's just her way of putting stuff to bed. And I feel like that's the same here. That Sir Arthur Conan Doyle felt the same kind of way. Like, he got haunted by his creation, but in a way, in order to to go for as long as you did with this creation that you came to despise, you must have loved him. I find him very, very interesting, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I enjoyed it completely, and because these are a collection, you can literally just pick up individual ones, or you can just read through them. It's entirely up to you. Like the radio dramas, they dramatized all 60. There are 60 Sherlock Holmes stories. They dramatise all of them. You can go through all of them, or you can just pick individual ones you want to listen to. Like I adore, like I said, the Speckled Band. I am headed. My number one is the Red-Headed League. I love that story so much. It is so freaking good. And yeah, I when I've listened to the radio dramas, I've listened to that one loads of times. I love the Red-Headed League. I don't know why. When you know what it's about, I have no idea why, but there is something about that story that I'm obsessed with. I love that story. But he had such an interesting ability to be able to take something that would be accepted as normal, then have someone question, why is that the way it is? And then unravel this massive mystery that sometimes has multiple layers, has multiple things, and multiple crimes that you think are not related are actually linked. It's just exquisite. I thoroughly enjoyed the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, and I really want to go and read all the others as well. I want to re-listen to the radio dramas. I want to rewatch the drama, which I am now about to talk about, the absolutely fabulous Sherlock Holmes complete collection, starring the late great Jeremy Brent. He is so good as Sherlock. I cannot begin to put the words together to say how amazing he's good. He's my Sherlock. He is my Sherlock Holmes. These are so good. What's the running time on this? It's something ridiculously long. 2,358 minutes. And it covers all of the various collections of the stories, and these dramas ran from 1988 to 1994. So there's a whole wide collection there. I definitely going to have to rewatch all of these as well. There are so many people in it who at the time were not well known, who have gone on to have incredible careers, and at times were well known and are still well known. So there are so many guest stars that pop up throughout these dramas. But for me, this is the definitive Sherlock drama collection. Now, of course, there are other ones, like more modern takes, like we had the Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law take from when was that? 2010s, I think it was. I don't know exactly. I've never actually watched those because I just wasn't interested in those whatsoever. And then, of course, you've got the Benedict Comberbatch and Martin Freeman. Sorry. His surname literally was there and it just frizzled out of my brain. That one. Now, that one I forgot to bring down from upstairs, so I don't have them physically to hold. Now, that one, series 1 and 2, absolutely brilliant. Series 3, good, even though it has some problems, but good. 4, don't touch it with a barge pole. It is frigging awful. So bad. So yeah, I definitely recommend series 1 and 2 and series 3, but be aware that it is a bit dodgy. But that's a modern take on Sherlock. And Stephen Moffat did some weird shit with that, especially in the final series. But yeah, it's kind of like you have that thing of with Agatha Christie, like, who is your Poirot, who is your Miss Marple, you have that thing as who is your Sherlock Holmes, and Jeremy Brett is mine. And I love him. He is so good in all of these dramas. They are really, really well put together. And as I mentioned, the radio versions are exquisite. They have adapted all 60 of the stories. And as I said, it's 48 and a half hours long. At the moment, it's $7.99 on Audible, or £1 for 48 hours of amazing drama. So I would highly recommend that one, as well as obviously this. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes and His Last Battle. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, touch you, let you say. Oh, I forgot to mention. I just remembered Lucy Worsley, one of my favourite historians, recently did a documentary, a multiple part documentary for the BBC about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and his love-hate relationship with Sherlock Holmes, which is on BBC Iplayer. If I can find the trailer, I will include it in the description as well. Check that out. It was really great as well. So, right, there we go. So now I'm done. So yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave it up to you. And yeah, you will see me announcing what my next 5 reads are. And I completely forgot until after I filmed it that my next book that I will review, which I'm very excited for, and you will see what the title is my 300th review on YouTube. That is insane. So I hope you enjoy finding out what that book will be. All right then, everyone, and I'm determined to be back next weekend with a review of that now that I am back to normal. So yeah. All right then, everyone. Bye.